A while back, I was in an apologetics class with a professor from the philosophy department. He said to us, "Do you ever think about how having a phone in your pocket makes you more powerful than the Egyptian pharaohs?" I thought about that for a moment, and the first thing that came to my mind was social media. Sure, I can't force a bunch of people to build a pyramid for me, and I haven't convinced them that I'm a god, but I and hundreds of thousands of others can make a statement or take a photo, share it on social media, and it could reach millions of people from all around the world. For most of human history, we've had this powerful desire to recreate images and share them, which we express through paintings, drawings, and sculpting. It is only thanks to centuries of ideas, inventions, and developments that we now have cameras that are accessible to many people. And the camera alone, the ability to capture a high-quality, fixed image from a moment in time and keep it in your pocket, makes one dubiously more powerful than a pharaoh. Now, when I first watched Nope, I'll be honest and say I didn't fully understand it and couldn't appreciate it. But it was during my second or third rewatch when I saw how genius this movie is, and that quote from my professor came back to mind. And I realized the characters in this film are profoundly relatable for people growing up in the age of social media. The main characters of Nope, M and OJ, have an origin story intertwined with the history of film. M explains to the audience that the first star of a motion picture was a black man riding a horse, who happens to be her ancestor. Except, this is not common knowledge to anyone else, and M is kinda the only person that seems to care. The camera turned their ancestor into a movie star, and this is the only evidence that this person even existed. While the siblings didn't inherit much of a legacy, they did inherit a horse ranch where they train horses for Hollywood. So they finally got this gig where they're using their horse to shoot a commercial, and they have to run down some safety protocols. OJ tells them not to look at the horse in the eyes. M tells them to put away their cell phones, which is something repeated later by Jupiter's wife at the theme park. The director says, "Tell the horse we're ready to do one." As if the horse works for them and would understand. So as the crew rushes in, OJ senses the horse is overwhelmed and tries warning people, but he's ignored. The atmosphere is getting increasingly claustrophobic, and then OJ's horse catches a glimpse of its reflection, and it's frightened. So much of this movie's message is in this single scene, and something about it feels like a response to the Greek myth of Narcissus. What if our reflection doesn't draw us in, but instead activates our instinct to look away? In a lot of stories, such as this one, the best monsters are mirrors. The monster reflects something about us, perhaps a fatal flaw or something we've neglected. Nope takes that idea a step further by making the villain a literal mirror, that monster being the camera. The next time the horses and our characters are in danger, they're being hunted by the alien named Jean Jacket, an evolution of the camera, a giant monster that looks like a lens or a human iris. And throughout the film, the characters flip-flop between fear and fascination with Jean Jacket. The camera throughout this movie is a barrier between the characters and reality. In the beginning, the presence of the camera, and the film industry by extension, have deluded the characters into thinking they can fully control this horse, a force of nature. And before that, the movie opens with a shot from the bloody set of Gordy's home, the sitcom that Jupiter starred in as a child. In this small story within a story, the camera gave the crew and audience the similar illusion that a chimpanzee can be made harmless. Except this time, when the animal lashed out, it had severely more violent consequences, resulting in the death of the actors. And even before that, Peele presents us with this quote from the Book of Nahum: "I will cast abominable filth upon you, make you vile, and make you a spectacle." For context, the Book of Nahum is a biblical book about the fall of the Assyrians, who God was about to judge because they had destroyed other nations and gloated over them. This quote sets the stage. To be a spectacle is for something very wrong to have happened to you. Audiences are later shown the full massacre that occurred on the sitcom set, but it's through the camera lens. We watch the show, the fiction, through the camera lens. While our focus is on the actors, Gordy's anxious panting can be heard in the background. Young Jupe breaks character for a split moment, taking us out of the illusion for just a second. The balloons are released, and the characters look up, taking their eyes off Gordy right before he snaps. Once the violence ensues, there is no camera filter. We're in the moment with young Jupe. The applause sign is still blinking, almost as a mockery of the viewers. Many watchers have pointed out that when Gordy knocks over this lampshade, it moves with Gordy's gaze, and it looks just like Jean Jacket. We don't fully understand what filming does to the person being filmed. There's a lot of things in this film beyond our understanding, Jean Jacket being one of them. Pretty much everyone went into the movie thinking this creature was an object, the typical image of a UFO flying saucer. Then Peele reveals that it's an animal. The flying saucer is the alien's body. We see horses getting abducted, but we don't know what happens once they're inside. And like us, the characters have it wrong too. Jupe says to his audience, "What we saw was a flying saucer. No doubt about it. We are being surveilled by an alien species that I call the viewers, and though they have yet to emerge from their ship, I believe they trust me. If they didn't, I don't think any of us would be here right now." Jupe is fooled by his own story, what the postmodern philosophers would call the meta-narrative, that he's built around the alien. Jupe believes that Gordy and Jean Jacket have human-like qualities, that they can relate to him, that they chose him. To himself, he says, "Remember, you're chosen." When Gordy raised his fist to Jupe, he didn't interpret this as Gordy reverting back to his training, but that he's being spared. Gen Yamato suggested that this is because Jupe could relate to Gordy as a child actor, and they share this experience of being on the stage as someone who's a step below in power. Yamato writes, "Ricky's past as a child actor exploited and then spit out by the fame machine makes him the film's most tragic figure, and this sets him up to make the fatal mistake of underestimating a creature that's too dangerous to wrangle." Moments before disaster, Jupe is trying to get OJ's horse, Lucky, to do what he says, but the horse doesn't budge. It's like the moment when he messes up his line. It takes him out of the story for a moment and reminds him that these animals can't understand him. In fact, a lot of the problems in this movie come from humans projecting human-like qualities on animals, but the film slaps us in the face with these critical moments that remind us they're not. Animals don't want to be famous or remembered. They don't share that human desire to exist in an immortal memory. Why would Gordy care about being part of this sitcom or experience affection for the actors? When Jean Jacket passes over people, the electricity and power goes out, making it so no one can use their phone to take a picture. They're forced to face reality. And we, along with Jupe, learn the hard way what this alien actually does to the humans and animals it takes. It eats them alive. They are literally, and figuratively, consumed by spectacle and viewership. The fact that it's so hard for these characters to get a single photo or video of Jean Jacket seems to resonate with this idea present throughout many cultures, which is that the more miraculous or divine something is, it is that much harder or impossible to capture it on film. Or, as mentioned previously, that the camera would prevent us from experiencing something sublime. For example, many Native American cultures that practice sun dances prohibit photography or filming of the ritual, believing that it will scare off spirits, and more so that it is intruding on what is intended to be an intimate and sacred ritual. There's this sense it cheapens the experience, that something truly magnificent must be experienced in person, and the inability to replicate it adds to that specialness. This is definitely true in the world of theater and the discussions around bootlegging. Part of what makes a theatrical experience unique is that it exists in the moment. The story is unraveling in live time. Additionally, a live theater performance can never be the same each time, unlike a movie which will be the same upon each rewatch. It could also be that trying to take photos of a spiritual experience is not just an invasion of privacy, but also kind of this hubris or naive entitlement. By taking a photo, you're attempting to seize power over something or someone that is not of our world, something you should have reverence for. Or, perhaps, to look at it is like gazing into the abyss. And this new knowledge is so outside of your scope, to look at it would cause harm to you. So the ability to take a moment and immortalize it has a lot of weight. But at the same time, even if you get something on camera, it can't tell the whole story, which can make it even more dangerous. Throughout Nope, we see how people can use cameras to twist stories. When Emerald recounts the violent incident on the set of Gordy's home, She doesn't remember it like a traumatic memory, but more like a good movie she watched some time ago. She says in a chipper tone, "My pops told me about this show. The monkey went all crazy or something." Because the main way the world learned about this story was through a Saturday Night Live skit. Jupe says that an SNL skit was made about this traumatic event, and he says, "You haven't seen the Bad Gordy sketch on SNL? I mean, it pretty much nails it better than I could. The bit goes like this. Everyone's trying to celebrate Gordy's birthday, but every time Gordy hears something about the jungle, Gordy, Catan, goes off. And it's Catan. He's just crushing it. He's a force of nature. He's killing it on that stage." And then it cuts to Jupe as a child, traumatized. Stephen Yeun's performance indicates that he's believing what he's saying, but he's being avoidant. He's suppressing his trauma, what his mental camera caught. Now, many decades ago, we didn't have the World Wide Web or social media, but we did have Marshall McLuhan, commonly recognized as the father of media studies. McLuhan witnessed the television skyrocket in popularity, but more importantly, he saw that it was evolving. And this guy predicted the internet before the internet, what he called a global village. And he had a lot to say about how incredible and frightening that reality would be. And he also said some stuff about the cameras. To say that the camera cannot lie is merely to underline the multiple deceits that are now practiced in its name. We believe that the camera is all truth-telling, but it can still distort. Or more importantly, it doesn't reveal what was left out. In Nope, this is part of the commentary about the erasure of Black artists' contribution to film history, the lack of representation, the conversations that should be ongoing. The camera provides credibility, respect, and recognition. This single motion picture is what connects the siblings to their past in the first place. Now, ideally, in extreme situations involving crime, the camera can hold an abuser accountable, vindicate an innocent person, or more generally raise awareness about social issues to the public. The camera can create a barrier between a person and a difficult reality, but it can also force someone to confront a hard truth. The camera, after all, is one of the most powerful weapons against censorship. But for M and OJ, the camera could only capture what their ancestor did, not his name. That part was up to his descendants to carry on that legacy. At the end of the movie, when M finally captures the photo of the alien, I couldn't help wondering if that would even be enough for people to believe her. It would still be up to her to tell the story about everything else they saw, and on the audience to believe her. Getting something on camera is only half the battle. Getting people to react to it, to understand the picture the same way you do, is another story. Malcolm Turvey writes, "For although the camera serves a purpose, it enables us to see something by recording it. Its purpose is not to see, because we use perceptual predicates to refer to patterns of behavior of a living creature rather than a task or purpose that can be duplicated by a machine. For us to say that a machine such as a camera can see, at the very least, it would have to behave as if it could see." In other words, cameras don't see the way people do, because to see something isn't just the act of looking, it's also your reaction, what goes on in your brain after looking. A lot of times, we don't know the motivation behind the photographer. All we know for sure is that this moment was important enough to someone for them to try capturing it. The fact that we have photos of tragic history, of war crimes, chattel slavery, the Holocaust, gives less power to the people who try claiming these things didn't happen. For instance, in the 19th century, photography was an important part of activism for a notable abolitionist by the name Sojourner Truth. In addition to delivering speeches about her experiences as a former slave, she also sold photos of herself, such as this one, stating, "I sell the shadow to support the substance." Perhaps the modern-day greatest uses of photography are done by war journalists who risk their lives to capture glimpses of the consequences of war, who share the stories of people who otherwise may not have been heard, and it can influence change. But we also need the photographer alive to provide context for these photos. The fact that people risk their lives for photos is an indication of how powerful said photo is. And now we have to ask ourselves, what story is worth risking one's life for? But looking at the story of the horse, Gordy, and jean jacket, the sanctity of life is an afterthought. The clearest example of this is the TMZ guy, who doesn't care about having severely injured himself, and in his suffering, all he can say is, "My camera, I need my camera." There was a seed of this in OJ earlier. When he thought he was being pursued by aliens, he doesn't immediately run. He pulls out his phone to record it. So what happens then when social media is thrown in the mix, and now there's this infinite demand and reward for spectacle?
I think has been one of the big effects of the electric age. It has deprived people really of their private identity.
So that's what this is doing to me?
Yes. Everybody tends to merge his identity with other people at the speed of light. It's called being mass man. By the way, one of the big marks of the loss of identity is nostalgia. And so revivals on all hands in every phase of life today. Revivals of clothing, of dances, of music, of shows, of everything. We live by the revival. It tells us who we are or were.
If you watch videos of people at concerts or festivals, you'll see an ocean of phone lights. Countless fans trying to create a tangible memory of the spectacular. But the longer you record, the more you sacrifice some of the quality of your experience so it can be repeated later, or because you want other people to know it was real and to share in that spectacle with you. But watching something through a barrier is not as exciting as getting to see it with your own eyes. And trying to expand an experience longer than what is reasonable can carry consequences. Oftentimes, witnessing the extraordinary requires sacrifice, and many people have taken on the task of turning themselves into spectacle. Jupe, for example, doesn't understand his experience on Gordy's show as a warning. Instead, he interprets it as him being special, because if he survived that, then what are the odds of it happening again? He transformed himself into spectacle by commercializing his traumatic experience. Despite having a front row seat to a dangerous situation, he's still trying to repeat it by creating another show with Jean Jacket. Em and OJ keep trying to get that one picture of Jean Jacket even after they find out what it's capable of. But why? Well, one answer is money. As a wise man once said, there is all the difference in paying versus being paid. When Em and OJ's father was killed, it was a nickel that fell on him from the sky and pierced him through his eye. And it came from the alien, or symbolically the viewer, a powerful moment representing many of the movie's themes. But for someone like Jupe, money is only a partial incentive, but his main motivation is about the addiction to spectacle and this insatiable craving to see other people's reactions, for them to share in his shock, awe, and wonder. And we have many modern-day Jupes. The ability to immortalize a moment has led to some really bad ideas. Videos of people jumping off buildings, people committing crimes on camera, unnecessarily risking their lives to draw in viewers. And the irony is, they're not trying to end their life. They're trying to extend it. Because what is fame? It's lasting memory, legacy, feeling like you matter, that your gifts are seen and recognized, and the camera becomes the tool to achieve these goals. It makes perfect sense then that Peele was inspired to create Nope following the 2020 COVID lockdowns, when our demand for bread in circuses was arguably at its highest. Now, it's one thing to put yourself in the spotlight, but what about shifting the light on someone else? After all, filming is sometimes part of how the public rewards or punishes people. Sometimes we turn people into spectacle to inspire or celebrate someone's gifts, but on the punishment side, they're filmed as a cautionary tale, to humiliate a person, or maybe to warn people about a present danger. But of course, because it's the internet, it's a cesspool. Some other examples of this include filming other people in gyms, game and reality TV shows that torment the players, parents disciplining their children or sharing their embarrassing moments online, also now known as sharenting. And a lot of times, these aren't even fueled by anger. We just do it because we find it funny, or more likely, pure curiosity and fascination with antisocial behavior and public awkwardness. If we dig deeper into the more devastating power of cameras, we get into seriously insidious territory, the worst being snuff films, the non-consensual sharing of intimate videos and photos, child abuse material. Throughout all these examples, it appears it's more common for the person who is watching, the cinematographer, to be more powerful than the one who is being filmed. The person who is looking is taking something away from the person who is being looked at. But humans have always been this way. We've had the stocks, gladiators, public executions, later on, human zoos and circuses in the 1900s. But what the camera has done is captured that moment of suffering and immortalized it. And social media then gave the stocks a larger audience, so the trauma is all the more deeper. It's often lost on us that this form of tormenting others is still a recent development. This form of abuse doesn't register to us as abuse because it's not achieved through physical force. The camera does a lot for a person with minimal effort, which doesn't compute with what our idea of violence is. As Maya Deren put it, the motion picture camera is perhaps the most paradoxical of all machines, in that it can be at once independently active and infinitely passive. Kodak's early slogan, "You push the button, it does the rest," was not an exaggerated advertising claim. In sum, it can produce maximum results for virtually minimal effort. And in the future, when we have more studies about the psychological impacts of all this, I don't think it's going to be pretty.
Research on the negative impacts of deepfakes, we're not really sure when that'll come out. We actually have a lot about non-consensual pornography. But the truth is, you don't actually know. You have no idea what the psychological impact is like for the person who's actually the victim. We don't have really anything in the history of humanity that sort of has allowed the human brain to experience this kind of thing.
What do the exploited have in common throughout this film? To Jordan Peele, exploitation is often paired with the loss of home. The fight between the siblings in Jean Jacket is kind of a property war. The siblings claim the ranch because it's their inheritance, and in a metaphorical sense, it's haunted. Jean Jacket doesn't have a super evolved concept of home in an emotional sense, but it is territorial, and this is its hunting ground. What was Jupe's sitcom called? Gordy's Home. Perhaps that name is about how the cast members don't realize they're in something else's territory. Or maybe it's about how this chimpanzee was taken from the wild and then placed in a fake home and it can't handle that. And perhaps our tug and pull with social media has something to do with home too. In a lot of ways, the online space is our second home. What is a global village if not composed of a bunch of homes? What is our true home? In the climax of the movie, Em is at Jupe's amusement park. She's both trying to kill and capture the creature that dropped a coin on her father all those years ago, and the coin reappears. It's what Em uses to take the final shot. Emerald's desire for fame traces back to her childhood. The alien, Jean Jacket, is named after the horse that her father was supposed to let her train, so Jean Jacket represents the recognition that her father didn't give her, the recognition she's still chasing after. But us, the audience, we don't celebrate the shot as much as we celebrate the reveal that Otis and Angel survived. Because this movie could have gone very differently. Earlier, when the TMZ guy arrived, he asked Em who she was. He says, "Oh, I'm sorry, who are you?" And she responds, "Nobody." He adds, "You don't look like a nobody to me. What's the matter? Don't you want to be on TV?" She keeps telling him he needs to leave, and he says, "You're lost, nobody." And as she's walking away from the alien, she mutters to herself, "Nobody, nobody, nobody." This scene is reminiscent to a similar moment in Homer's Odyssey. Odysseus and his men are imprisoned by a one-eyed monster called the Cyclops. The Cyclops asks Odysseus for his name and he responds, "Nobody." Later, Odysseus impales the Cyclops with a rod, blinding him, and all the Cyclops can say is, "Nobody is killing me," so he can't reveal to people that Odysseus did it. And perhaps in both these stories, there is something about the protection and safety that comes with being unseen, unobserved. Fame, in its own right, is a curse. The title of the film, Nope, is a rejection to that siren call of spectacle, to avert one's gaze. It is a call to listen to our instincts, to value our lives and our loved ones' lives. Em's real victory isn't being seen by the whole world, it's being seen by the one who matters most to her. And perhaps the glory of a moment is not in the miracle of catching it on camera, but having experienced it firsthand for oneself.
Well, cowboys and cowgirls, it's time to ride off into the sunset. That's right. Happy trails. It's closing time. You don't have to go home. You can't stay here.